It is early November in the boreal forests of northern Minnesota, and the temperature has already dropped well below freezing. Snow has settled deep between the black spruce and the trembling aspen, and the world has gone quiet in the way that only a northern winter can make it. The days are short, the light is thin and gray and cold, and somewhere out in this frozen wilderness, a pack of 6 wolves is moving. They travel in single file, each animal placing its paws in the tracks of the one ahead, conserving energy with every step. Their breath rises in small white clouds that dissolve almost instantly into the frozen air. These are not young animals, not inexperienced hunters, still learning the ways of the wild. The pack is led by a large male, broad across the shoulders, with a coat the color of ash and charcoal. Behind him moves his mate, slightly smaller, but no less formidable, her amber eyes scanning the tree line as she walks. Behind them come 4 more wolves, 2 younger adults, and 2 from last season's litter, now fully grown and earning their place in the hierarchy of the pack through discipline and patience and the slow accumulation of hard-won experience. They have been traveling for most of the night. They covered close to 30 kilometers in the darkness, looping across frozen lake surfaces and pushing through dense spruce thickets, following a trail that most animals would never even have detected. But these wolves are not most animals. Their noses are processing a world of information that lies entirely beyond human perception. The scent trail they are following belongs to a bull moose, a big one, and they have been tracking it for hours. If you want to see how the natural world truly works, how life and death are negotiated in the coldest and most unforgiving of arenas, stay with this. And if this is the kind of storytelling you come back to time and again, hit that subscribe button now. What happens next in this frozen forest is something that will stay with you for a very long time. The moose is enormous, a fully mature bull, 7 years old, standing nearly 2 meters at the shoulder and weighing somewhere in the region of 550 kilograms. That is more than half a ton of muscle and bone and antler, a creature so large that it is difficult to convey in words just how imposing it is, until you have stood in a forest and seen one move between the trees. He carries his weight with a kind of lumbering grace, his long legs picking through the deep snow with surprising ease, his broad hooves acting like natural snowshoes, spreading his weight across the surface. He has shed his antlers already, as bulls do in late autumn once the rut is over. But even without them, he is a monument to everything that a prey animal can become when millions of years of evolution have had time to work. He is not in perfect health. That is the first thing the wolves understood when they picked up his trail. It is a detail embedded in the chemistry of the scent he leaves behind, in the way the impressions of his hooves sit in the snow, in the subtle unevenness of his gait. He is carrying an injury to his right foreleg, something that happened perhaps 2 weeks ago, a collision with a fallen tree in the dark, or a slip on a frozen creek bank. The wound itself has closed, but the deep muscle damage beneath is still limiting his movement, and in deep snow, that limitation matters enormously. The wolves know nothing of this, in any conscious analytical sense. They do not reason it out in the way a human observer might, but the information is there, translated through scent and track and sound into a kind of collective knowledge that shapes the decisions the pack makes, without any single animal needing to articulate it. The gray male at the front of the line slows. He stops. The rest of the pack stops with him, reading him the way they always do, each animal tuned to the posture and energy of the one ahead. He has caught something fresh in the air. The moose is close, very close. The bull is standing at the edge of a partially frozen lake, perhaps 300 meters ahead, half hidden by a screen of alder bushes growing along the shore. He is feeding, pulling frozen bark from the upper branches of a young birch, tilting his great head back to strip the wood with his lower teeth. He is unaware of the wolves, or rather, he does not yet know where they are. Moose are not without their own senses. They have large, mobile ears that can rotate independently, and a sense of smell that is nearly as acute as the wolves that hunt them. But the wind is coming from the lake, toward the tree line, carrying the scent of the pack away from the bull, rather than toward him. The wolves are downwind. It is not accident. It never is. The gray male does not signal the others in any theatrical way. There is no howl, no dramatic display of intent. Instead, there is a shift in his posture, a lowering of the head, a slight increase in pace, and the pack responds to it with the seamless coordination of animals that have spent their lives in each other's company. They begin to spread out, not randomly, but with a purpose that has been refined through thousands of years of inherited behavior and sharpened by the experience of this particular group of animals in this particular landscape. Two of the younger wolves angle left, moving wide through the tree cover toward the far end of the lake. The two from last year's litter hold back, staying close to the tree line, watching, waiting. The gray male and his mate move forward through the alders, using the cover of the shrubs and the low winter light to close the distance. What happens next unfolds over the course of several hours, and that alone is something worth sitting with for a moment, because there is a tendency, in the way we imagine predator and prey interactions, to compress them into something brief and explosive. We picture the chase, the catch, the end. But wolf hunts are rarely like that. They are long, they are grueling, they are negotiations carried out in cold and snow and exhaustion between animals that are both giving absolutely everything they have. The moose detects the wolves when the gray male and his mate are perhaps 80 meters away. It is the sound that gives them away, a soft crunch in the snow that reaches him on a slight shift in the wind. He raises his great head, his ears swivel, and then he turns toward the open ice of the lake and begins to move. A bull moose running is a sight that stops the breath. He covers ground at a pace that seems impossible for an animal of that size, those long legs pistoning through the snow, his body rocking with the effort, steam pouring from his flanks. But the snow is deep here, close to a meter in places, and every stride costs him something. The wolves move differently in deep snow. They have lower body mass relative to their paw surface area, and they have been designed by evolution specifically for this kind of pursuit in this kind of terrain. They do not tire the way the moose tires, not immediately, not in the first kilometer. But they do not close the gap yet either. The gray male is not trying to close the gap, not at this stage. What he is doing, what the whole pack is doing, as they spread across the ice behind the fleeing bull, is testing, watching, learning. Every animal has its limits, and the wolves are searching for the exact geography of this particular animal's limits, the point at which the injured leg begins to fail, the moment when the energy reserves built up through a summer of grazing begin to run short, the instant when the moose's enormous willingness to survive is overmatched by the simple arithmetic of physics and fatigue. The bull crosses the lake. He hits the far shore and pushes into a stand of black spruce, the trees close enough together that his bulk forces him to choose his path carefully. This is not ideal terrain for him. The spruce are dense, and the snow between them is even deeper, unpacked by wind, soft and treacherous. He slows. The wolves behind him accelerate slightly, not pressing hard, just maintaining contact, staying visible at the edge of his awareness, keeping the pressure on. There is something almost architectural about the way wolves hunt large prey. Each animal in the pack plays a role, and those roles shift as the terrain changes and the hunt develops. But the underlying structure remains constant. The purpose is not simply to chase an animal down through brute speed or strength, though both those things matter. The purpose is to find the right moment, the moment when everything tilts in the pack's favor, and then to act with absolute commitment. That moment has not come yet. The moose is still strong enough, still moving fast enough, still dangerous enough. And that danger is real. A bull moose that turns and fights is an animal that can kill a wolf with a single kick, driving a front hoof down with enough force to shatter bone. Wolves are killed by moose with some regularity. The older animals in the pack carry the memory of that fact somewhere deep in their behavior, a caution that is not fear exactly, but something practical and precise. The time to press is not now. The bull pushes through the spruce for nearly half a kilometer before the trees open up into a wide, shallow valley where a creek runs beneath the ice. He stops here, breathing hard. His flanks are heaving. His breath comes in great billowing clouds of steam that drift and dissipate in the cold air. He turns to face back the way he came. The wolves stop when he stops. They are spread across the tree line behind him, 6 sets of eyes watching from the shadows of the spruce. The gray male sits down in the snow. One of the younger animals lies down. They are resting. They know how to wait. This standoff lasts for nearly 40 minutes. The moose stands in the valley, watching the tree line, his body slowly cooling, the sweat on his flanks beginning to freeze. He is aware that the wolves are there. He can smell them now. But they are not moving, and the moose's instinct, calibrated over millennia, tells him that a predator that is not moving is a predator that can be watched, that the danger is manageable, so long as he can see it. What the moose cannot account for is the cold. The temperature is dropping. It is now somewhere around -20 degrees Celsius, and the standing water in the valley bottom, where he has stopped, is freezing. The surface of the creek ice beneath the thin snow crust is not stable. It is honeycombed by the current running beneath it, fragile in ways that are not visible from the surface. And the moose, standing still now, is beginning to sink. It happens slowly at first. His rear hooves break through the crust of snow into a pocket of ice that gives way beneath his weight. He lurches sideways, catching himself, but the movement sends his left rear leg punching through the ice surface and into the shallow water below. He pulls it free with a sucking sound that carries clearly across the valley. He has lost perhaps 4 seconds of explosive movement capability, his leg now wet, and the water beginning to freeze almost immediately against his skin. The gray male is on his feet. There is no hesitation now. The dynamic has shifted in the way that the pack has been waiting for, not dramatically, not catastrophically, but enough. The injured foreleg, the wet rear leg, the fatigue already accumulated over the chase. These things add up to something the wolves can feel in the quality of the moose's movement when he begins to run again, which he does the moment he sees the gray male rise. The chase resumes, but it is different now. The pack is tighter, moving with more urgency, the gap between them and the bull closing with each kilometer. The moose is heading back toward the lake, back across the open ice, and 2 of the wolves that had circled wide earlier are already there, positioned on the far shore, their dark shapes visible against the pale snow. The bull sees them and veers north along the lakeshore, pushing into a narrow strip of mixed forest between the water and a rocky ridge. It is here, in this narrow corridor of birch and alder, that the nature of the hunt changes most decisively. The 2 youngest wolves, the ones from last year's litter, are moving in from the left, cutting through the birch with a speed and agility that speaks to everything right about being a young wolf, in good condition, in familiar country. They are not the largest animals in the pack, but they are fast, and they read the terrain instinctively, using the contours of the land to angle the moose away from the more open ground where he would have the most space to accelerate. The bull is tiring now. It is visible in everything, in the way his stride has shortened slightly, in the way he is no longer lifting his legs quite as high over the snow surface, in the way the steam from his flanks is coming faster and lower. He has been running, with periods of walking and standing, for close to 3 hours. He has covered perhaps 12 kilometers from where the wolves first flushed him. His body has been burning through glycogen reserves at an extraordinary rate, and those reserves are not unlimited. He stops again, but this time, the terrain has been shaped against him by the wolves, and the place he has stopped is not a place he would have chosen. He is in a shallow depression between 2 ridges, the birch thick around him, the snow deep, the slope on his right, rising steeply toward the rock. The wolves have not coordinated this in any explicit or discussed way. There was no plan drawn up in advance, but the accumulated instinct and experience of the pack, the way each animal reads and responds to the others, has produced something that functions like a plan, something that has herded this enormous animal into a space where his advantages are minimized and theirs are enhanced. The gray male approaches from the front. He is perhaps 15 meters away, and he stops and simply stands, meeting the bull's gaze. This is not aggression yet. It is something else, something more like an assessment, a reading of the animal in front of him. The moose drops his head slightly, turning to face the gray male directly, and in that turn, he takes his eyes off the wolves that are approaching from behind and from either side. The female comes in from the left. She goes for the flank, and the moose kicks back with a rear leg that catches nothing but air, and in the split second of that kick, the gray male is moving forward, driving in toward the animal's nose, because the nose is the softest point, the most sensitive, the place that bleeds quickly, and that impairs the moose's ability to breathe hard and run. It is a bite that cost the gray male a close call, with those front hooves, which come up and down like two hammers, on either side of his head as he dives back. But the bite connects, the moose bleeds, and the blood in the snow changes something in the dynamic of the pack. One of the other wolves is already at the hindquarters. This is the standard point of attack for wolves pursuing large prey. The muscles of the rump and hindquarters are thick and accessible, and repeated biting there causes blood loss and muscle damage that erodes an animal's ability to keep moving. The moose kicks back with both rear hooves at once, in a double-barreled strike that would have been catastrophic had it connected fully. It catches the wolf a glancing blow on the shoulder. The wolf yelps and rolls, and is back on its feet within seconds. Not seriously hurt, but it retreats for a moment, reassessing. The moose runs again. Only this time the run is shorter, less than 200 meters before the deep snow, and the failing muscles, and the burning lungs, and the wet leg, now heavy with cold, all conspire to bring him back, to a standstill, at the edge of a thick spruce grove, where the branches of the trees sweep down to the snow surface, and further movement is difficult. There is a quality to this moment that is hard to describe. The moose is standing, his back to the spruce, facing the wolves. He is still immensely powerful. He is still capable of killing. But there is something in his posture now, a slight sag in the quarters, a heaviness in the head, that the wolves read as clearly as a change in the weather. The two younger animals that have been circling wide all afternoon are now close. All 6 wolves are within 20 meters of the bull. They are not rushing. They are not frantic. They move with a slow and purposeful patience that looks almost casual unless you understand what it is. The gray male makes the first committed attack of the final sequence. He goes in low and fast, driving for the nose again. The moose swings his head down hard, and the gray male has to throw himself sideways to avoid being struck. But the female is already moving in from the right, going for the throat this time, reaching up toward the underside of the great neck, where the hide is thinner. She connects. She holds. The moose throws his head back, and she is lifted off the ground with it, her front feet leaving the snow entirely, and she hangs on. The bull is shaking his head. He is swinging the female through the air. This is the moment of greatest danger for her, because if she lets go, she will be thrown into the trees, and the impact could break bones. She does not let go. The 2 younger wolves are in now, one on each side, driving for the hindquarters, biting deep and pulling back. The second of the older wolves is at the nose again, working the gray male's entry point, widening the wound. The bull goes to his knees, not all the way down yet. His front legs buckle, and his chest drops toward the snow, and then he hauls himself back up, with an effort that speaks to everything extraordinary about what these animals are. He is back on his feet. He is still fighting. The female is still at his throat. He swings again, and this time she does release, dropping back into the snow and rolling and scrambling upright. The standoff continues. The wolves circle at close range now, each animal reading its moment, probing, testing, not committing unless the opening is clear. This is not the frenzied attack of an animal, driven purely by instinct and appetite. This is controlled. This is measured. This is 6 animals that have hunted together long enough to know that patience at this stage is not caution, it is precision. The gray male has circled to the rear. The moose cannot watch all 6 wolves simultaneously, and the gray male uses this, times his approach, to coincide with a moment when the bull's attention is drawn forward by the female and one of the younger animals fainting at his nose. He drives in at the hindquarters from directly behind, going deep, biting and releasing and biting again, and the moose kicks back, but the kick is slower now, the power behind it diminished by the long accumulation of exhaustion and blood loss. The bull goes down again, and this time he does not get back up. He does not go quietly. Even on his side in the snow, he is still dangerous, those long legs still capable of delivering tremendous force. The wolves work carefully around him, approaching from the side and rear, and it takes time, longer than you might imagine, before the bull is still. The snow around him is dark with blood. The steam from his body rises into the freezing air in great soft columns that catch the last thin light of the afternoon. The gray male stands close for a moment. He is breathing hard. There is blood on his muzzle, and his fur is matted and damp. He stands over the animal in the way that wolves sometimes do. not in triumph, not in any emotion we can assign with confidence, but in a kind of physical acknowledgement of what has just happened. Then he begins to feed. The pack feeds together, which is itself a thing worth noting. There are hierarchies in wolf packs, and those hierarchies govern everything from movement to reproduction to who eats first in lean times. But a successful kill of this magnitude provides enough food that the tensions that govern daily life in the pack are temporarily eased. All 6 animals feed. The 2 youngest eat as much as their elders. In a kill this size, there is enough to go around many times over. A bull moose of this weight represents somewhere close to 300 kilograms of usable food. The pack will consume a remarkable amount in this first feeding, gorging in the way that wolves always do after a successful hunt, because they cannot know when the next kill will come. After this first feast, they will rest nearby, sleeping the deep sleep of animals that have exhausted themselves completely, and then they will return to the carcass and feed again. The kill will not go unchallenged. Ravens are already gathering in the trees above. These are the classic companions of wolf kills across the northern hemisphere, birds that have learned over thousands of years that following wolves is a reliable route to food. They will descend on the carcass almost as soon as the wolves allow it, loud and quarrelsome and bold, pulling at the edges of the kill with that cheerful indifference to the cold that makes ravens one of the most successful birds in the north. A pair of red foxes is watching from the tree line. They will wait, and when the wolves have rested and the ravens have had their share, the foxes will move in. A Canada lynx, a large male, will pass through in the early hours of the following morning and take what he can carry before the wolves return and drive him off. In this way, a single moose feeds an entire community of animals across several days, a cascade of energy, moving outward from this one event in the snow until there is almost nothing left. By the 4th day, the carcass will be largely stripped. The bones will remain, picked clean and scattered across a wide area by the ravens and the foxes and the coyotes that have also found their way to the site. In spring, those bones will release their minerals back into the soil, feeding the plants that grow in this clearing, feeding the insects that feed on those plants, feeding the birds that move through in summer. The moose will become the forest, and the forest will become the next moose. This is what it means to be a keystone predator. Not simply an animal that kills, but an animal whose killing shapes the entire ecosystem around it. The wolves of the northern forests are not a threat to that ecosystem. They are its engine. Without them, the moose population would grow beyond what the forest could sustain. The trees would be overbrowsed. The understory would collapse. The songbirds that nest in that understory would disappear. The beavers that depend on the young aspens would decline. The wetlands that beavers create would dry out. The fish and the amphibians and the insects that depend on those wetlands would vanish. Every one of those things happened in the areas of North America where wolves were extirpated across the 20th century, and where wolves have been reintroduced, as they were in Yellowstone in 1995. Those cascades of consequence have run in the other direction, restoring complexity and richness to ecosystems that had become simplified and degraded in their absence. It is one of the most extraordinary demonstrations that nature has ever provided of how interconnected everything is, how the removal or restoration of a single predator can restructure an entire landscape down to its rivers and its soil. The wolves in Yellowstone changed the behavior of the elk, which had been overgrazing the riverbanks. As the elk began to move more and stay longer in denser cover, the willows and the aspens and the cottonwoods came back along the waterways. Beavers returned and built dams. The dams created ponds. The ponds changed the hydrology of the rivers. The rivers changed course and ran more slowly and more steadily. In a very literal sense, the wolves changed the rivers of Yellowstone. They changed the shape of the land. This is what those 6 wolves in the Minnesota forest represent. Not simply a hunt, not simply a meal. They are a force of nature, in the fullest and most profound sense of that phrase. But let us come back to them, to the pack in the snow, gathered around their kill in the failing light of a November afternoon. The gray male has moved away from the carcass and is lying in the snow a few meters from the others. His eyes are half closed. He is exhausted in the way that only an animal that has given everything it had can be exhausted. The female is still feeding, efficient and focused. One of the younger wolves has already curled up in the snow nearby, his tail over his nose, his breathing slow and steady. The two from last year's litter are playing briefly at the edge of the clearing, running at each other and tumbling in the deep snow with a kind of released energy that is almost startling after the long focused intensity of the hunt. Wolves are social animals in a way that few predators are. The bond between animals in a pack is not simply functional, not just a matter of cooperative hunting efficiency. There is something deeper in it, something that expresses itself in the way these animals move together, sleep together, communicate across the silence of the frozen forest, with howls that carry for miles on a cold, clear night. The hunt we have just witnessed was an act of cooperation, yes, but it was also an expression of a relationship between 6 individuals who know each other with an intimacy that is difficult for us to fully appreciate. The gray male and his mate have been together for 4 years. They have raised 2 litters in that time, and the animals feeding at this carcass include their surviving offspring from both. They have made dozens of kills together. They have lost kills to rival packs, to bears, to the simple bad luck of animals that got away into terrain that offered them safety. They have been hungry together, cold together, and they have survived together in a landscape that does not offer any second chances. This kill, this particular November morning, in the deep spruce and birch of the Minnesota boreal, is one moment in a story that has been running for years and that will continue for years more, until the gray male and his mate are too old to lead the pack, until younger animals rise to take their place, until the relationships that hold this particular group of 6 animals together are reshaped by time and loss and the unpredictable pressures of life in the wild. There is a howl from the tree line to the north, a single long note rising and falling in the cold air. It is not from this pack. It is from another group, a rival pack, that ranges this same general territory and that has, presumably, heard or smelled something that has drawn them toward this kill site. The gray male raises his head. His mate stops feeding and listens. There is a moment of collective attention that passes through the pack like a current. Then the gray male gets up. He walks back to the carcass and stands over it. He is not moving to defend it, not yet. He is simply reasserting presence. The howl from the north does not come again, not tonight. The rival pack has assessed the situation and chosen discretion, at least for now. By midnight, the temperature has dropped to -28. The forest is absolutely still. The pack is sleeping in a loose cluster near the carcass, their bodies generating enough heat that each animal is wreathed in a faint mist in the cold air. The ravens have gone to roost in the spruce. The foxes are somewhere in the dark at the edge of things. The stars over northern Minnesota are astonishing on a night like this, thick and bright and utterly indifferent to the small dramas being played out on the snow below them. Consider the wolves. Consider the moose. Consider the 600 million years of evolution that produced both of these animals, shaped them against each other, in the way that a whetstone shapes a blade, each species making the other sharper and harder and more precisely fitted to its role. The moose is big and strong because of predators like wolves. The wolves are swift and coordinated and intelligent because of prey like moose. They have made each other. They are, in the most literal biological sense, part of the same story. The world does not always make this easy to see. We tend to observe nature in fragments, a single animal, a single behavior, a single moment, captured and compressed into something we can hold in our attention. But the reality is different. The reality is, this long November chase across frozen lakes, and through deep snow, and through 3 hours of exhaustion and cold, and fear, and determination, the 6 wolves and the bull moose, negotiating the terms of their existence, according to rules laid down over millions of years. The gray male shifts in his sleep. His mate presses closer against him. One of the younger wolves raises its head and looks at nothing for a moment, then settles again. Tomorrow the pack will eat again, and then, when the carcass has given what it has to give, they will move on. They will travel through the long dark of the northern winter, following deer and snowshoe hare and the scent trails of other moose across a landscape that is theirs, in the way that wild country belongs to the animals that are fully adapted to survive in it. not owned, not possessed, but inhabited, with a depth and completeness that we can only observe from the outside and try to understand. In the weeks that follow the kill, something interesting happens in this particular corner of the forest. The moose in the area, which have been moving freely through the birch stands along the lakeshore, begin to spend less time in the open. They are responding to the presence of the pack, to the signs and scents left by the wolves as they range through the territory in the days after the kill. The moose move into denser cover. They spend less time feeding in the most accessible spots along the waterways. This change in behavior has an immediate and measurable effect on the vegetation. The young birch and willow along the lakeshore, which had been heavily browsed by moose over recent seasons, begin to grow without interruption. By spring, those stands of young growth will be noticeably more robust than they were the previous year. The beavers that work the stream at the south end of the lake will have more material to work with when they begin their late summer dam building. The dam they extend will flood a new section of the valley, creating a pond that will become, within 2 seasons, a productive wetland supporting wood ducks and great blue herons, and a population of painted turtles that find the shallow, warm water exactly what they need. None of this is visible from the site of the kill in November. None of it is predictable in the specific way that one might predict the outcome of a calculation. But it is real, and it is happening, and it is the direct consequence of 6 wolves moving through a landscape and doing what 6 wolves have always done. The 2 youngest members of the pack are approaching their second winter. They were born in the den in early May, the previous year, when the snow was still on the ground, but the light was already stretching long into the evening. There were 5 pups in that litter. 3 survived to adulthood. One of the 3 left the pack in late summer, a young female who headed northeast and has since established herself in a new territory about 90 kilometers away, where she has found a mate and is, as of this particular November, pregnant with her first litter. The 2 that remain are male brothers. They look similar enough that a casual observer might mistake one for the other, but the gray male and his mate have no such difficulty. Each animal in the pack is a fully distinct individual, with particular strengths and tendencies and histories that the others know as well as any family knows its members. The older of the 2 brothers is more cautious in the hunt. He watches more than he acts, reading the developing situation with a patience unusual in a young wolf. His instinct is to understand before he commits, to find the angle, to wait for the moment. The gray male sometimes watches him in the way that an experienced animal will watch a younger one, that shows the qualities that leadership requires, not with any conscious intent, but with a kind of recognition. The younger brother is the opposite. He is fast and bold, and sometimes reckless, the first into a dangerous situation and the last to back out of it. He is the one who took the kick to the shoulder in today's hunt. He will carry that bruise for 2 weeks. He has carried worse before, and he will again. Between them, and between all 6 animals in this pack, there is a balance that works. The cautious one sees the approach. The bold one makes the commitment. The female provides the crucial throat grip at the final stage. The gray male drives the primary attack at the nose and face. The 2 middle animals, the surviving members of the first litter, now in their 3rd year, work the hindquarters with a coordination that has been perfected over many hunts. 6 animals, 6 particular animals, with their particular characters and histories, functioning as something more than the sum of their parts. There is a concept in ecology called emergent complexity, the idea that systems of interacting parts can produce behaviors and outcomes that cannot be predicted from the parts alone. A flock of starlings, performing its extraordinary aerial murmurations, is a classic example. Thousands of birds moving as a single fluid entity, each responding only to its nearest neighbors, yet producing together a display of liquid, shifting complexity that seems to have an intelligence and intention all its own. A wolf pack hunting is something like this. No single wolf carries the plan. No single wolf directs the others with conscious intent. And yet the hunt has a structure, an architecture that emerges from the interaction of 6 individual animals, each responding to the others, to the terrain, to the prey, to the moment. The result is something that transcends what any one of them could accomplish alone. A single wolf, Even a large and experienced one almost never takes a fully grown bull moose alone. It is not impossible. There are accounts of it happening in exceptional circumstances, usually involving an animal that was already severely compromised by injury or disease. But as a general rule, a bull of this size is simply beyond the reach of one wolf. The prey is too large, too powerful, too capable of defending itself. A single wolf that pressed an attack on a healthy bull moose would most likely be killed. Two wolves might harass such an animal, might even wear it down over a very long chase. But the coordination required to manage a large moose in the final confrontation, to have one animal at the throat, while others work the hindquarters, while still others press from the flanks. This kind of three-dimensional coordinated attack requires numbers. It requires a pack. And this is the deep reason for the pack. Not warmth, not play, not the social pleasures of shared company, though all of those things are real. The deep reason is the moose. The deep reason is the need to take prey large enough to provide the calories that sustain life through a northern winter when everything else, the small mammals, the deer, the birds, has gone under the snow or migrated south. The pack is a hunting technology, an ancient and extraordinarily effective one, and the relationships within the pack, the bonds and hierarchies and individual personalities, they are not decoration on top of that technology. They are the technology. They are the mechanism by which 6 animals become something capable of bringing down 550 kilograms of muscle and bone and will. The night deepens. The temperature falls further. The northern lights are beginning to work across the sky, above the Minnesota forest, pale green curtains of light, rippling and folding in the darkness, indifferent and beautiful. The wolves sleep. By morning, the ravens will have returned. The foxes will have taken their share in the small hours. The pack will wake to a sky that is just turning pale at the horizon, and they will feed again, moving around the carcass with that efficient, unhurried focus, eating quickly and thoroughly in the way that animals eat when they have learned not to take abundance for granted. And then, sometime in the late morning, the gray male will begin to move. He will stand and shake the snow from his coat and stretch the long stretch that wolves do, front feet pressed into the snow, back arched. He will look at his mate, and she will rise and look at the others, and one by one, the pack will gather itself for the next movement, the next kilometers, the next chapter of the life they are living, in the cold and dark and brilliant silence of the northern forest. They will leave the site of the kill without ceremony. No backward glances, no lingering. The carcass has served its purpose. There are other territories to check, other scent marks to refresh, other trails to follow through the deep snow. The winter is long, and the distances are great, and the work of being wolves in a northern forest is never quite finished. But for now, in the pre-dawn quiet, with the northern lights fading and the stars still burning in the western sky, the pack sleeps on. The gray male's flank rises and falls with each slow breath. The female's ears twitch at some small sound from the trees, a raven shifting in its roost, a branch releasing its load of snow with a soft collapse. Her eyes open briefly, scan the darkness, close again. The forest is still. The snow holds the memory of everything that has passed through it, the long-running prints of the moose, the smaller, precise tracks of the wolves overlaying and crossing each other in patterns that tell the whole story to anyone who knows how to read them. By afternoon, the wind will have begun to fill those tracks, softening their edges, erasing the finest details, returning the snow to its smooth, unmarked surface, as though none of it happened. But it happened, and in the ecosystem that surrounds this small clearing in the birch and spruce, it will continue to happen in its consequences for months and years to come. The birch along the lakeshore will grow, the beavers will build, the wetland will form, the ducks will nest there next summer, and the herons will stand in the shallow water at the edges, and the turtles will bask on the mudflats in the July heat, and none of them will know anything about 6 wolves and a bull moose on a November morning. But all of them will be there because of it. This is the world that the wolves maintain. Not consciously,